So are Chaos Space Marine players thinking about picking up any of these new Battle Force box sets that Games Workshop no doubt haven't produced enough of? And how do people rate the new Combat Patrol and the two Chaos Lords? Let's do a little bit of data digging around Games Workshop's latest release. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics. I'm following up from a channel poll earlier in the week just to see what people were more or less impressed with the Chaos Space Marine release and how they think it stacks up against other things that GW have come out with recently. Seems like this is going to be the last big Warhammer 40k release for a little while at least, pre-orders going live on Saturday the 11th of May, and any future things going on full sale on Saturday the 25th of May. The content of the release this time round is the Codex and the limited edition one, the dice and the datasheet cards, both battle forces as we'll get onto, the new Combat Patrol set and the new Cultist Firebrand that looks like it's direct only from GW. For this one I thought I'd just put a few graphs and data together for what Chaos Space Marine players are thinking about picking up, if anything, looking at which of the battle forces and Chaos Lords people rate best, plus how the Combat Patrol stacks up versus other armies. As ever, if you were looking to pick these up at discount, there's plenty of discount retailers links down in the video description. Element Games at 15% off in the UK, Gap Games at 21% off in Australia, Magnus Workshop at 10% off in Canada, and Wargame Portal at 15% off in the USA. Big thanks to any of you folks using those, it does help support the channel and keep the videos coming if you were going to pick something up anyway. For the Battle Force and Combat Patrol pre-orders going live, these are the times for those stores around the world, around midnight in the USA and Canada, 10 AM in the UK, and midday Eastern Time in Australia. Usually with these Games Workshop FOMO style box sets that they do, their normal thing is not to produce enough of them, and then often out of the limited quantity they tend to save more things for themselves, so there tends to be very little going around at discount. If you are trying to get one from one of these discount retailers or one of the others in your region, I'd try and be fairly prompt around these sort of times, and then fall back to the Games Workshop web store if not. I certainly wouldn't buy it out of FOMO though. Just decide whether or not you think it's an overall good enough deal versus just passing it up or getting the kits that you want at later dates, and all the other options for getting wargame models on the table such as 3D printing near proxies or alternative miniature ranges like those very nice Ravaged Star ones that Mini Wargaming have. Just to doubly underline that though, it does sound like these Battle Force box sets have been circulated in incredibly poor numbers versus some of them in the past. I've noticed a good number of third-party retailers posting on social media and just generally trying to set customer expectations that they're going to have either very few or none of these box sets. Games Workshop seeming to have preserved the lion's share of them from their own web stores, so certainly set your expectations accordingly there. I think they're going to be hard to pick up at discount, probably selling out really quite quickly from the few supplies that people have out there. Hopefully the actual GW supplies of them last a little bit longer for those who want them and are prepared to pay full price. Certainly sucks when they advertise something and then don't produce enough of it. They've been doing these FOMO style tactics for a while now, and it's always a bit tiresome when they hype up box sets and then inevitably players go disappointed when they can't get them. In any case, let's run through a brief reminder of the box sets and then talk about some data as to what people are looking to pick up. For the battle forces, there's two of them, the Dread Talons one with the Raptors, Demon Prince, Jump Lord and Cultists, and the Battle Force box sets are £140 or $230 US. This one's got a discount of around about 38%. The other battle force is the Veterans of the Long War one. This one's more focused on the core Chaos Space Marine range, 10 Terminators, 5 Chosen, 5 Possessed, 10 Legionaries and the On Foot Lord. A slightly lower discount, but at pre-codex prices it looks like you get far more in this versus the Dread Talons one. More like almost 900 points in the box rather than almost 700. This one definitely feels like the one more aimed at people starting Chaos Space Marines with a whole bunch of core units. Otherwise, we've got Codex Chaos Space Marines itself. They're a popular faction, and I'm sure a fair few people will be picking this one up. As codexes go, it's fairly chunky, 160 pages and 48 datasheets. They've gained the new ones for the Jump Pack Lord and that new Cultist Firebrand, and a few have gone away, including Lucius the Eternal and Noise Marines, plus the Exalted Champion it would seem. At least Lucius the Eternal and Noise Marines will be back in the Emperor's Children download index, and then likely in a codex later in 10th. There's 8 detachments in the codex, looking forward to talking through all of them in full in an upcoming Chaos Codex review video. That should be out later tonight. Otherwise, for discount box sets, we've got the new Combat Patrol set. This one's £95, €125 or $160, at least before Games Workshop raises any prices, which they might. This one gets the Master of Possession, 5 Possessed, 10 cultists, and 10 legionaries. Overall, it equates to around about 420 points and a 27% discount, fairly well in line with some of the offerings that they've had previously. The Combat Patrol replaces this old Chaos Combat Patrol, the one with the Havocs and the Hellbrute in it. Unfortunately, it does look like the discount has gone down from the one to the other, and you get fewer points in the box as well. Though obviously how good they are depends on how much you actually wanted the models. If you prefer to have Possessed and Cultists versus Havocs and Hellbrutes, then the new one's still fine. Finally, we've got the Cultist Firebrand with a bunch of Balefire Pike attacks and re-rolling some leadership for Cultists. Kind of interesting they've chosen to repurpose one miniature that came in a bigger box set before as an individual character, no doubt sold at much more. Finally, we've got the Chaos Dice and Datasheet cards, plus the 2 Chaos Lords that we'll be releasing separately, though they come in the big boxes now, and then they'll be released individually later down the line. With all that out of the way though, let's actually get into people's rating of those kits. I did a channel poll earlier in the week asking to get the feedback of some Chaos Space Marine players and what they were thinking about doing about these new releases, if anything. The first question is, do you currently play Chaos Space Marines? It looks like the majority of the people who answered the poll said yes, 60% were, with a further 20% or so saying that they plan to start with this release and get into the faction with the new codex and miniature launchers. Kind of stands to reason that the majority of people that are interested in that poll will be Chaos Space Marine players though, so obviously overrepresented versus the 40k population in general. Just for a bit of fun as well, I was interested to see what Legion people play. For the purposes of this one, I used the ones that are going to be present for new codex detachments, plus Emperor's Children, and I guess other would encapsulate a whole bunch of things, including followers of Vashtor, other legions that aren't in the core codex, and all sorts of renegades and warbands out there. Apparently the most collected Chaos Space Marine legions seem to be Iron Warriors and Black Legion. I guess Black Legion having Abaddon and Harkon as a few dedicated characters doesn't hurt in Warhammer 40k, and Iron Warriors are rather cool with their very different aesthetic, all steel and hazard stripes and ranged firepower. Otherwise for the rest it's at least fairly even. Word Bearers, Emperor's Children, Night Lords and Alpha Legion all kind of on a similar sort of amount, around about 10% or so, Alpha Legion being the most niche, and then Red Corsairs being significantly less supported, and a whole bunch of people in other different legions not asked for on this poll. With a selection of Chaos Collectors, I was interested to see what they'd rate the 3 different box sets as, the 3 different discount kits on offer this weekend. Looks like the Combat Patrol rates a 3.2 out of 5, the Dread Talons a 3.6, and the Veterans box set a 4.2. Seems that there's fairly solid preference for the big one with all the Terminators chosen and possessed. I'm not really too surprised by those ratings. It does feel like the most central of the kits. It gets you more points on the table, and does feel like Games Workshop will maybe pitching the Veterans one as the central one that they expect most people to be interested in, maybe the Dread Talons being an interesting expansion one for current collectors. Otherwise, for the big boxes, I was interested as to which one you'd rate better out of the Jump Lord and the Lord on Foot. It seems that while things are not 100% one way or the other, looks like the Lord on Foot picks up more votes than the Jump Lord, slightly preferred by the internet in general with 88 votes to 59. For the most part, I think that both sculpts went down at least alright. Not really too surprised to see a victory for the Chaos Lord there. Maybe the Jump Lord's pose is just a little bit on the awkward side, perhaps. Maybe he's a little bit curious, billowing on a bit of smoke coming out of a Primaris helmet as well. I guess that's one way to stop him standing on a tactical rock like the other one, though. Given people's general assessment of what's a good deal or not, I was interested to see whether or not that would actually equate to people picking up the kits. It does look like it's a pretty similar mix, really. When asked Chaos Collectors which they tended to pick up out of the box sets, if any, 45% said Veterans of the Long War, 36% said Dread Talons, and 27% said they were picking up the Combat Patrol. Obviously those add up to more than 100, given that some people might have said yes to multiple. Fairly even split there. Looks like the battle forces are going to be in more demand, the Combat Patrol a little bit less so, though we'll see whether or not Games Workshop actually let people pick up what they want. Otherwise though, regardless of big boxes, seems like the most popular and sought after thing will be Codex Chaos Space Marines. It does look like at least a fairly good one compared with some of them like Dark Angels and Custodians so far, and then a bit less than a quarter of people looking for datasheet cards and dice, and to be honest more than I might have guessed looking to pick up that Cultist Firebrand with the big flamer. He is a pretty cool miniature, though I sort of feel like he's quite a peripheral release in general. Plus one that feels maybe like a slightly cheeky release, taking one part of a squad and then selling them out at character prices. In general, it looks like the Veterans of the Long War will be the most in-demand Battle Force box set, but maybe not by all that much or more than I might have guessed. Otherwise, for combat patrol things, I thought it would be interesting to see whether people preferred the new one to the old one with the Hellbrutes and Havocs, versus the new one with Master of Possession, Possessed Squad, and the Cultists. As with quite a few in 10th edition, it does look like it's a victory to the old combat patrol. About 58% plays about 42. So while it is a win for the old one, it is still kind of close. I guess maybe a few people drawn to the new one as they're slightly newer miniatures, the Possessed and the Cultists in particular, versus slightly older kits like the Hellbrutes coming in the old one, I guess. I thought it'd be interesting to see how people rated it versus the other Combat Patrol box sets. When asked to rank the last 8 of them, people rated the Custodians one as best. Not really too surprised there, seeing as that's the only one where the points cost actually went up from the 9th edition one to the 10th. But then otherwise, at least at this poll, Chaos Space Marine seems at least kind of similar rating to Orcs and the Tau Empire one, a bit ahead of the Necrons. And then seemingly quite universally agrees that the Dark Angels and the Admech ones are significantly below the rest there, dropping another 20 percentage points or so. Overall, in comparison, still seems that the Chaos Space Marine Combat Patrol is seen as at least quite good by Chaos Collectors, at least compared with most of the factions who've got Combat Patrol releases in 10th edition, they seem to have done one of the better ones, even if, as we said, in terms of raw numbers, it might be a bit of a downgrade on discount and points overall. Given the news of pretty low supply of battle forces going to discount retailers though, one thing that did strike me is that the Combat Patrol might catch up a bit on that front. The Combat Patrol boxes always seem to get distributed to discount retailers in far better numbers compared with the battle forces. It does mean that if you've got the choice between picking up the Combat Patrol from a discount retailer versus the Veterans of the Long War or the Dread Talons from Games Workshop, it actually means that the Combat Patrol would work out as theoretically joint best with the Dread Talons if, say, you could get it at a 15% discount. Theoretically, the Dread Talons at no discount from Games Workshop's web store is 38% off the kits bought separately, and then if you do the maths to combine the 27% and then the further 15% from the discount retailers, that maths out to be 38% overall. And yet, if anyone want to point out, you don't add them together to combine that, that'll give you more than it is. Just one thing that I thought about when I was making this video that maybe means that the Combat Patrol might be a bit underrated, if it's the difference between getting this at 15% off or not getting any discount on the big boxes. Finally, to round up for some very important Chaos questions, I also asked you guys to pick your Chaos deity. It looks like the overwhelming majority for Core Codex Chaos Space Marines is going to be dedicated to Chaos Undivided, with second place falling to Slanesh, and then Vashdor after that apparently. I guess this maybe shows the effect that the deity-specific legions have encapsulated most of their followers within them. Nurgle, Tzeentch and Khorne all have slightly lesser numbers, so I guess that shows that quite a lot of the Chaos players here have their legion dedicated to Chaos Undivided, as might have been suspected from that choice of legion poll, I suppose. I do know the colours are very, very wrong for this pie chart. It's just the way that they came out. I'm sure Khorne is going to be seething in rage at being painted in blue. Finally, last but not least, did Magnus do anything wrong? Fairly even split between yes and no, but it seems that the dominant answer was a bit. So you heard it here, folks. Magnus was at least a little bit wrong. In any case, looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Let me know what you plan to do with Chaos Battle Forces, if you're going in for them at all. What do you make of them versus the Combat Patrol? And are you looking to pick up anything at this release or just sit it out? Look forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As mentioned, feel free to check out those discount retailers in the video description when orders go live. It does help to support the channel, though obviously as mentioned, I feel like they're not going to have many Battle Force boxes to go around due to GW's distribution. In any case, I hopefully shall be back for the Chaos Space Marine Codex video in the not too distant future. Feel free to stay tuned if you'd like to see that. I'll hopefully have a few more Chaos videos dropping on the channel over the next few weeks or so. Should be fun to dig into the Codex a little bit further. Finally, if you've been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that the other way to support the channel is via the Patreon page down in the video description. If you'd like to help out, channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.